introduce myself. I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld. They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another of my classic James Bond reviews. Today I'm taking a look at the 1967 Bond film You Only Live Twice. The film is directed by Lewis Gilbert and it stars, of course, Sir Sean Connery as James Bond, and we have Donald Pleasance as Blofeld. Right, this time round, Bond is sent to Japan to investigate as there is a bit of a space war brewing. Every time the US sends something into space, it gets swallowed up by some kind of giant spaceship. They presume it's the Russians, and then the Russians send something up. The same thing happens to them. They presume it's the Americans. They're both very close to going to war. They're saying, right, the next time this happens, it's war. So the British is the only one, really, that has got any kind of clue what's going on. And they head over to Japan to investigate, and Bond figures out that Spectre is at the centre of it all, and he has to stop World War III from happening. Right. What are my thoughts on You Only Live Twice? Well, this is probably one of the Bond films I've seen the least over the years. I can't really explain why. It's not because I dislike it. It's just I'm not as familiar with this one maybe as some of the others. So therefore, I had this kind of preconceived idea that I wasn't going to enjoy this particularly. And I was actually quite wrong. I was delighted with this. I really enjoyed this film. Is it as up to the same standard, as Goldfinger and arguably From Russia with Love? Maybe not, but I don't think it's a million miles away either. This is probably my third favourite Connery outing, and I thought it had a lot going for it, this. I mean, obviously, by this point, the publicity and the, just fever pitch, approach to James Bond in the 60s was absolutely crazy. I mean, the last few films have made crazy money. Goldfinger and Thunderball just absolutely blew Bond into the stratosphere in regards to popularity. So any Bond film was going to be, eagerly anticipated at this time. And as I said in my last review, it was probably an exciting time to be a fan of James Bond in the 60s when it was so fresh and new to a large degree. But also there was a negative side to that because Sean Connery was getting really fed up with the character at this point. I think he was getting bored with the character. I think he was worried it was kind of going to swallow up his career. And it didn't help as well the fact that when he was in Japan, doing the film, he was hounded by the press. Some of them even insisted that he called himself James Bond in interviews, and they even took pictures of him on the toilet and stuff, and he just completely had enough, and had even fallen out, I think, with the producers at this point at Eon Productions. He'd had enough, I think. So he announced, I think, during the making of this, while this was being made, it was going to be his last Bond, even though he was signed to do another one. I think they obviously agreed that they'd let him go after this one. And we know how that turned out, which we shall cover in the next review. I think, while I think there's a lot going for this film, I mean, there are some aspects of it that I don't think work. I mean, there are some pacing issues with this a little bit here and there. Obviously, the attempt in the film to turn Sean Connery Oriental is horrifically done. You wouldn't get away with that today. And it didn't work either. I mean, he looked about as Oriental as I did. You know what I mean? It was terrible. But the production design here and the sets were just on another level. I mean, the whole volcano set at the end of the film was just outstanding. I mean, it blew your mind. And my understanding is that volcano set alone cost more than Dr. No cost in total to make the first Bond film. I mean, outstanding stuff, really. It really was. And we get to see as well, obviously for the first time, we get to see Blofeld on screen, played by Donald Pleasance. Really, really iconically. He doesn't blink at all in his performance, Donald Pleasance. You know, he actually works really well as Blofeld, and obviously we get to see Blofeld again in other films, but I think he's played by different actors every single time. But has any ever been as good as Donald Pleasance? That's a debate to be had, I suppose. And then obviously you get classic moments in this. I thought there's some great hand-to-hand fight scenes in this. There's a great fight scene where he fight. Actually, I believe it's the High Chief, Maivia, who is Dwayne Johnson's great grandfather. He has a big fight with him, who was like a wrestler. He had a big fight with him, Bond, near the beginning when he gets to Japan. It's a really, really good fight scene. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was one of those where you're thinking, God, how's Bond going to do this? How is he going to get out of this? Because he was, outmatched physically, if you like. So I really enjoyed that. And then obviously you get the great iconic gadget of Little Nelly, that, was just... Oh, it's just so fantastic, isn't it? That bit with Little Nelly, and then you get that extended sequence of him taking down the helicopters with Little Nelly. It's yes, okay, you can throw things at it like, oh, it's just convenient. As soon as he gets up in the air, and Little Nelly is chased down by 4 copters, but it's a Bond film. Why wouldn't that happen? And it's really, really cool to look at. The whole action scene at the end, in the volcano, is brilliantly done. I mean, it's just wonderfully over the top action, chaotic action. It's done fabulously. I mean, you get the piranha pond, I suppose, that Blofeld gleefully drops people in, and the piranhas kind of shred the skin off them. I mean, there's so much classic Bond going on here in this, that obviously again was lifted and steeled for the Austin Powers films. Brilliant stuff. We get to see Bond in a naval uniform for the first time, which was really, really good. This is also I think the first Bond, and if not the only Bond, where he doesn't appear in Britain at all. He's always on foreign soil. And that scene at the beginning where you think he's been killed, I don't know how that would have been taken at the time. Did anybody take that seriously in that bit? Did anybody? I suppose those who read the books won't have taken that seriously, but I wonder if at the time that was like a big surprise when people thought Bond was dead. Obviously, it isn't a surprise now, all these years later, but maybe it was at the time. I don't know. It would have been quite cool to see that in the cinema. So, yeah, I thought this was beautifully made. Again, fantastic cinematography, great action, amazing set design and set pieces and production design. I mean, the whole thing. Classic Bond music, classic theme song by Nancy Sinatra. You Only Live Twice, obviously. So I think this is a classic Bond for me. I enjoyed this more than Thunderball, definitely, and I think it definitely up there in regards to my favourite Connerys. I thought it had a lot going for it. So, yeah, onwards, guys. I will be doing On Her Majesty's Secret Service next. I haven't seen that for a long, long time. I've always kind of never really been particularly interested in that one for one reason or another, mainly because, it's George Lazenby. He only did one Bond film, but I do know that it has got quite a devoted following on Her Majesty's Secret Service, so I'm looking forward to checking it out, and I will review it with a fair, balanced aspect and give it a good old check out. So thanks guys for watching this review. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. I will of course be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.